Welcome to Mark and the Millennials. I'm Matt Morgan, filling in for the vacationing Mark Fisher. And our millennial joining us today is, of course, Christopher Hopkins, our producer. And we have Maryland State Delegate, once again, my partner for today. And on Monday, it takes two of us to fill in for Mark, Delegate Brian Chisholm. How's it going, man?
It's becoming a habit, Matt. It's becoming a habit. I like it, though.
I like it, too. And you know, I was getting some text messages in from Mark, and it looks like he's having a really good time.
Well, God bless Mark. At least somebody gets to do it. You and I would stay back here and do the hard work.
You know, I would tell you where he went on vacation, but that's an undisclosed secret, almost like where like Dick Cheney hangs out in his secret lair.
Yeah, I've seen some of Mark's shirts, though, and I doubt that it's a secret to anybody that's within a couple miles of him.
Well, I'll just tell you, it looks warm, and it looks like he's having a great time. So he'll be back with us next week. But, Brian, anything new happening? I mean, I saw the Braves won the World Series.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, that was exciting. As you know, I went to school in the South, and I am on a huge text chain with 14 to 16, too many people. And it was funny to me last night that these guys are all Braves fans, or most of them are Braves fans. And it went from, well, the Braves are doing awesome, because I was down there when the Braves were horrible. I mean, horrible. And then they were great in the 90s. And they just kept getting beat by the Yankees.
Years.
That's right. And then they finally won in 95. So they're all excited about it. And I'm getting a million texts in a row. And then obviously the election results start coming in from Virginia. And every one of them was like, man, this is incredible what's going on. But one of them made a great point. A guy named John Hughes, who I've known a long time. And he said, Biden is doing exactly what he promised. He's uniting us again. And he was right. All these people are now united against this idea that Joe Biden has any business being in there. And people like Terry McAuliffe, who were obviously defeated in almost in an embarrassing fashion last night, because the American people woke up, or the Virginia people woke up and said, you're not in control of my life anymore. And I think it was awesome to watch.
Well, from last night, from the election results from Virginia to New Jersey, it looked like wokeism was losing out the ballot box big time. And I did enjoy wokeism losing in the World Series as well. It's so ironic that we had a Texas team in Atlanta playing in the World Series after Major League Baseball pulled out the All-Star game this summer because of voting laws that they passed in Georgia.
I was waiting for Stacey Abrams to get on and congratulate the Atlanta Braves. I didn't know where she was last night. She went silent, I guess. But
well, maybe she'll end up being the governor of Virginia when it's all said and done. So we do have some news clips about what was going on last night. So let's see if we can catch a theme for what's going on. Mr. Producer, you got a clip?
Amazing! Woo! Alrighty, Virginia, we won this thing!
Wow. A lot of enthusiasm up there in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin pulls off an upset there. People are just really, really pumped up. And, why? How did this happen? Joe Biden won that Virginia by 10 points. Virginia was supposed to be a blue state. And not only did they win the governor's mansion, but they also won the lieutenant governor and their House. Republicans took over the House of Delegates in Virginia. They also won their attorney general's race. How'd that happen?
I think what happened was they awakened a giant. I really do believe that. I think parents, one of the things that happened, and we talked about this a lot last year during COVID, is parents got a open window to what was being taught to their kids, and they started to see the education system and all of the failings that were brought into full view for so many people to see. And they wanted an answer on why things were being done the same way. And then you have people like Terry McAuliffe, who's one of these intellectual elitists, and then the school board president coming out and just saying, it's none of your business what we do or what we teach your children. And I think it woke a lot of people up. And I think, and somebody made a great point last night on the news that you pick the subject, or you pick the issue, And McAuliffe and Joe Biden are failing on every one of them, whether it's national security, whether it's the border, whether it's the economy, or whether it's education. Education just happened to take front and center last night because of a lot of the critical race theory talking. But I do believe everybody is upset across the board. And so we had this groundswell of people that maybe they didn't expect, because the numbers did show Biden won certain areas, and then McAuliffe got crushed there last night, which also begs the question is how much played into it with the mail-in ballots.
I don't know about the mail-in ballots, but I can definitely tell you this race turned when Terry McAuliffe got up there and made that. He accidentally told the truth during a debate.
Yeah,
that parents probably shouldn't be involved in the education of their children, and what you really saw was a revolt around just that topic. CRT played a big role in it as well. A lot of stuff going out there in Loudoun County. But really that single moment where he's like, he told parents, it's like, well, we're going to educate your children. You shouldn't be involved. And they accidentally told the truth. And you saw the repercussions of that as suburban people came together and said, no way.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things about Youngkin, and I didn't know this until this morning, but it just spoke loudly to me. And he was a dishwasher and a coach. So he and a business owner. He's a blue collar guy. And I think that's what the big switch was last night. Blue collar, whether you're Democrat or Republican, that's who's really starting to realize that we are on a really dangerous and bad path. And that's who was awakened and showed up last night, is blue collar people. And I believe it would be, I know you share this sentiment with me, it would be my wish that we get more people, real world Americans, people that actually have worked for a living, have been blue collar, and know what it's like. The ones that don't care about your race, your creed, or your color, that's just going out and trying to make America work again, instead of being some intellectual elite that's only wanted to be in government your entire life and be in control of people's lives. And so I applaud him. I think he did a great job, and it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, I think he ran a great race. I always had more confidence in someone that carries a lunch pail versus a briefcase.
That's right.
And he really came through on that in his image, like a person that cared. As a father, he looked like a blue collar type worker wearing his little vest around there. Yeah. And that played well in that area of Virginia. And congratulations to him. So we're going to tell you, we have a clip. Chris, you want to play the clip talking about this is from his victory speech last night.
We're going to introduce choice within our public school system. How about that? Choice within the public school system.
So I've been a big proponent of school choice. I really think Republicans have screwed up the last year and a half during COVID, when school systems were shut down and they just didn't come out in unison and talk about giving parents options and letting parents choose what school you go to your child attends. And for some reason, we have this policy throughout the country where, government schools almost create this monopoly where they actually segregate kids based on their zip codes. So I think there's going to be a substantial push for school choice in Virginia. And I think that is awesome.
I think it should be nationwide. And I think it's more of it's a family empowerment that really should be given back to them. This is the problem we have in many government programs. It's the third payer system, right? So you don't realize when your kid's going to school what your money's really being spent on. It's kind of like the healthcare system. You're giving your money to the insurance company. The insurance company is then paying the provider. But you don't really care how much the Band-Aid costs then. You don't really care how much some of these things cost. That's why we have these huge hospital bills. But it's the same thing in the school system. You're giving your money away in real estate taxes. That's what they do. And then they take the money and they spend it the way they wish. But as a parent, when you go to a private school, you go toward that private school, you want to know what your kids are learning, and you're writing a check or paying it. So you're going to demand accountability. And that's what we've lost in the public school system. It's not transparent and it's not accountable. And that's not a slight on any of the teachers. I know in the public school system, there's some incredible teachers, but there are so many people at the top, and it's become so bureaucratic that there's no way that you're ever going to get the result you want unless you're able to see exactly what's being taught to your children. And I'm hoping that this is one of the many steps it's going to take to really give families, kids, and the choice to make the decision that's best for their family, not what's best for this state or some government agency.
So every teacher I've ever talked to, they want parental involvement. And we have some incredible teachers in the public school system. But just like everything else, those teachers are getting drowned by the bureaucracy there is in our public school system right now. And we do have school choice to a degree. You have to go purchase a piece of property into the school district you want. That's your choice. Pretty expensive to do that. I don't know why we're discriminating against kids based on their zip code. And this is really evident in disadvantaged areas like, in the cities, where we're forcing kids to go to perpetually failing schools. And this isn't our platform. This isn't a Republican platform, a conservative platform. I believe that we need to give parents choice. And you just got to really, if you're going to reform education, you got to take the nameless, faceless bureaucrats out of the equation and put together parents and local school boards. I
would agree with you. And we looked at this in Baltimore City, and you remember that we talked about it on the floor. And there was like 5 schools that were graded 0 by the Maryland State Department of Education. So it wasn't us grading it, which meant that nobody was actually learning anything in these school systems. And my question was, why are we discriminating against these kids that maybe do want to learn, but now they don't have the opportunity? Why not empower that kid? Why not teach him how to flourish and move himself up that economic ladder and give him a real opportunity for education? And their answer was, no, that's called busing. Well, it's not busing. It's called freedom and choice. And we should be giving those kids, even with that small step of perpetually failing schools. We're not just talking about schools that are doing bad. We're talking about schools that 0 people are coming out of there proficient in math or English, and we're making kids go there.
Absolutely. Economic freedom where the money, or educational freedom where the money follows the child, I think is a winning talking point for Republicans around the state, because it's good. It's good for families and puts parents back in control. So last night, it was a bit entertaining because, the polling came in for Youngkin pretty late on this. They almost forgot New Jersey. Now, New Jersey looks like it's in play. Which is just amazing. But watching like MSNBC commentators melt down last night, they just didn't take this well at all. We have a clip, don't we, Chris? Go ahead and play this. Check this out, podcast listeners.
First of all, it's not over. You do have the grassroots folks out there fighting for this on the Democratic Party side. The stakes are high. When this election is over in Virginia, we will know. Have we seen the emergence of the Delta variant of Trumpism? The Delta variant of Trumpism. In other words, Youngkin, same disease, but spreads a lot faster and can get a lot more places.
So they're not even complaining about like Republicans or Trump people. They're saying that everyone that voted for Youngkin and comparing them to a virus that killed hundreds of thousands of people in this country alone, they've lost their minds.
They cannot give up on it. They want to grasp on the same things constantly. It's either Trump or COVID. Now they're putting them both together, and that's what caused the problem here. They're so, I guess, arrogant that they refuse to look at what even the exit polls say. Nobody talked about the Delta variant. Matter of fact, it had nothing to do with COVID, the election yesterday, from what the exit polls showed.
Well, they're telling us that, if you have this mindset, if you went and voted for Youngkin because you might be concerned about, I don't know, rising inflation, education, crime in your neighborhood, all issues that most candidates go out there and try to talk about. But if you're like, if you voted for Youngkin because he thought his policies were better than that, you're like a virus.
Right. And it's never about policy. It's never about actual intellectual debate. It's always about how can I destroy you? You're so bad. You're like the COVID Delta variant. That's where he is with this.
Well, it gets better and better. Nicole Wallace had a similar type meltdown. Go ahead and play that clip for the podcast listeners, Chris.
An insurrection flag at his rallies. He simply didn't. He played dumb about a Zoom rally. He did not really put much distance between himself and Donald Trump on the big lie or the deadly insurrection in which police officers were maimed by flagpoles. So I think that the real ominous thing is that critical race theory, which isn't real, turned the suburbs 15 points to the Trump insurrection-endorsed Republican.
So Nicole Wallace is, in my opinion, the worst.
Yeah.
She's like, you all are so stupid. You bought a lie that doesn't even exist. Let me ask you this one simple question. If it doesn't exist, then why are they so worried about banning it?
I don't know. But this is what is surprising to me, because usually the Democrat Party and the mainstream media, they're always on the same page. And some of them, I've heard people say, well, critical race theory needs to be taught because we need to teach the true history. Then other ones, no, we're not teaching anything at all. So they need to be on the same play. And if it is so great, why are you afraid of teaching it? And if you're not teaching it, why are you talking about it every day?
Well, it's just kind of just unbelievable that she's like, oh, everyone bought this lie. Like right. It doesn't exist. It's on the State Board of Education, on the Virginia State Board of Education's website. And they force every teacher to look through the lenses of equity to make judgments about their students and about grading. And I just think it's almost unbelievable that she pushes this out there without any remorse, without, it's like people compares them to the insurrectionists at the, going to the Capitol on January 6th. And this just, I can't even believe this is like a news show anymore. It looks more like a clown show.
I did pick up on the fact that her voice kind of goes back when she talks about the insurrection, because she's starting to, maybe she has finally gotten the news that a lot of it was made up. And so she gets kind of quiet on it and then backs away from it. But it's their playbook. Their playbook is always going to be the same. They're going to say dog whistle in every chance they can now. They're going to say that it's the insurrection. They're going to say it was COVID. And they're going to say it's Trump. But they're unwilling to really look at the truth of what happened yesterday. I will say they probably even though they're melting down, the CNN, corporate probably happy with these things, MSNBC, because it's the only time all of us conservatives actually turn it on. And that was in my, my group text last night. Everybody's like, oh, you got to turn on CNN because it becomes comedy. It is pure comedy for all of us to watch this meltdown sometimes, because it is so hilarious and it's so devoid of any fact that they're just throwing out whatever they can.
So, not to be outdone from Van Jones or Nicole Wallace, but the Deranged Newscaster of the Night award easily goes to Joy Reid. We have 2 or 3 clips from Miss Reid. So go ahead and play those for us, Mr. Producer.
Among white women voters. In 2020, white women voters went 50% for Biden, 49% for Trump. In this election, per the exit polls, they're going 57-43 for McAuliffe. That is not macro. That's issues. With education being the number one thing on the minds of these voters, that means that Terry McAuliffe lost a very specific messaging war on race.
Joy Reid can't get past race. That's the only thing that's her main decision-making motive there. It's pretty unbelievable how they have not advanced through this at all. They won't talk about any other topics. It's only about race.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's how they've won elections, and that's how they figure they're going to continue to win elections, is to put out this disinformation about what's really going out in the world. I mean, they beat up Trump all the time. They called him a racist once he got there. But now, if you look at the numbers, more black families saw economic growth than in any other time in history. We should never look at things that way. We should be trying to raise everybody, but just with opportunity. But they want to take every section of America they can, divide it up, pit it against people, and make all these boogeymen, because that's how they win elections. It's never about results.
So we have more from Joy Reid last night in the meltdown at MSDNC. So go ahead, Mr. Producer.
And the exit polls showed that which was interesting, that the coronavirus, or that the virus, was a very
low
not importance to many of the voters there. It was education, which is code for white parents don't like the idea of teaching about race. And I mean, unfortunately, race is just the most palpable tool in the toolkit. It used to be of the Democratic Party back in the day when they were Dixiecrats, and now of the Republican Party. It just is powerful.
I don't disagree with that, but I also think that, the other thing that happens here is just the thermostatic public opinion, which is a term coined by a political scientist.
Wow. So it's always about race. It's always about that. The comment is parents don't like the idea of white parents teaching about race. And then I'm kind of speechless on that. And then goes ahead on to compare it to white supremacy. Now, it's interesting. I don't know if they have a meeting about this and launched their talking points out to operatives, but Juan Williams on Fox News the day before released the same thing. The Hill covered it, comparing white parents and saying if you're concerned about education, it's, that's code for white supremacy.
And that's their way. They want to shame you into not voting for a candidate because they're going to label you a racist. But it's funny to me that we have always wanted history taught in our schools. We just want the true history taught, right? It's interesting to me that she at least admitted, well, the Democrats used to be Dixiecrats, who were also the ones that started the KKK. I mean, they never want to talk about the Republicans being the ones that passed civil rights, the Republicans the ones being the ones that freed the slaves, the Republicans the one that shed blood to free slaves, evil as it was back then. But they never want to look at their own history. They just want to use it. And she said it's a palpable tool. Did you hear her say that? She knows it's a palpable tool. It's her tool. It's a tool they've always used. Maybe they're just mad because people are waking up to the fact that they've been dishonest about it.
Well, I just think that this was one of the first elections where people are starting to we're going to make Democrats accountable for the repercussions and the results of their own policies.
Right.
And Democrats are like, well, we can't run on the great economy. We can't run on things are safer. Your neighborhoods are safer. They can't even run on their record on education. So the first thing they come over to you and hit you over the head with is you're a racist. Yeah. And it's this current theme over and over again where they're trying to set the narrative for this. And we have yet another clip from Joy Reid last night. Go ahead and play that, Chris, for our podcast listeners.
They would have to be willing to say what you have said on your show. I think we've all said a version of it. You have to be willing to vocalize that these Republicans are dangerous, that this isn't a party that's just another political party that disagrees with us on tax policy, that at this point, they're dangerous. They're dangerous to our national security because stoking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hardcore stuff. It leads to the January 6th stuff because if people are tolerant of it in your party, they're tolerant of the soft racism, it's a really short trip to get to the January 6th insurrectionist place.
And we're not. Oh, those evil racists in Virginia. Such evil Republican racists in Virginia. They had the nerve. You're going to find this unbelievable, podcast listeners. They had the nerve to elect a black woman as lieutenant governor. And they came back and won with a Cuban American as their attorney general. So they're screaming like Republicans are racist, Republicans are racist. When I see the Republican Party are putting these candidates forward and talking about actual ideas and solutions. Imagine that. Say you, Brian.
We are dangerous. I mean, and we're so dangerous. They fear that we're gonna give people freedom again. They really are. And I remember Dinesh D'Souza talking about this after Trump. When he said the Democrats haven't been this mad since we freed all their slaves, and he was right. They don't like upward mobility. They don't like self-reliance. And now more and more minorities, black, white, you name the minority, they are all starting to believe in freedom because many of them have left or shed behind them what they know is an oppressive government. And they see what we're doing here. When she talks about dangerous, has she seen any of the videos of Afghanistan? That's dangerous. When men are hanging off of planes trying to get out of that place and Joe Biden left them back there, that's seared in people's minds. That's what's dangerous. They are so afraid to let people see the truth. That's what's dangerous to them because we want to expose people to what they can become and what they can do. All they need is freedom, and they don't like that.
Well, they don't like that, and it's pretty obvious. I mean, this is just a recurring theme that's coming out of this election. It's like so in your face, right in front of you to see. So Kamala Harris actually did a campaign rally for Terry McAuliffe right before this election, and telling us what this election meant for years to come. Chris?
Because you see, what happens in Virginia will in large part determine what happens in 2022, 2024, and on.
I agree with her.
Yeah.
I agree with her. We were talking earlier in the week on the podcast that, Virginia is a bellwether because it's a unique election where there's never an incumbent involved in their governor's race. They get rid of their governor every 4 years and elect somebody new. So it's 1 year after the presidential election. So it is a bellwether for what's coming. And I'm telling you, if Democrats, the policies of AOC, of America is just not ready to go socialism yet.
I would hope not. And I think
one step too far.
That's right. And I think last night was a good indicator of that. But I do believe, and Kamala Harris is not used to being right, so it might be kind of an awkward week for her this week. But I do, and we've discussed this before, but I think Ronald Reagan was right when we said we have to hold the banner of bold colors and not just pale pastels. And what he meant by that is we have to stand on certain principles. It doesn't mean that we're not a big tent. We are a big tent. The bigger the tent, the better the party. We want everybody to come in with us, but to understand there's certain principles as Americans that we believe in that we're not willing to waver on. And I think that the vast majority of Americans believe that. And we can't lose focus when we go into 2022 and think, oh, it's going to be our year. It's going to be our year. And we start to go back towards these failing policies and we're just going to be Democrat light. I think we have to be, these are our principles.
Yeah, I don't think Republicans win being Democrat light.
That's right.
And it's interesting when Youngkin was running like the regular Republican milquetoast boring campaign, he was about 5 points down in the polls. And it's really when he started dabbling and getting involved in some of this culture war stuff with the critical race theory, some of the crime issues out there, and just talking about cable or tabletop kitchen finance issues like gas prices and food prices. That's when the polling really switched and he started making this a race.
Yeah, he started to figure out what really matters to people. What are they facing at home? And too many politicians miss this. They speak in policy and in all these flighty terms. They don't realize what's really going on with people in their house. And that's what I think he did. He finally realized there are a lot of families that are struggling with what's going on in the economy, with what's going on in their kids' school. And he hit on that and said, I understand what's going on. And I believed him because he did. He's been through this. He's a blue collar guy. He understands. Terry McAuliffe has no idea. He has spent his whole life in either Washington, D.C. or in the governor's state house. He has no clue how real world Americans, either Democrats or Republicans, really live their lives. And Youngkin finally said, you know what? I'm going to take off this bull crap politician stuff. I'm going to talk to you like you're my neighbor. I'm going to talk to you because I understand what you're going through. And that's when he soared in the polls, and that's why he won.
So the other excuse Democrats are going to lay on this loss on, the progressives are going to come out and blame Senator Christian Sinema and Joe Manchin. They're like, oh, if these guys only would have got on the wagon and voted for the infrastructure bill. The problem is we haven't gone progressive enough. And we got a clip on that, don't we, Mr. Producer here?
Last week, Speaker Pelosi urged the importance of voting and passing the BIF bill before the president took the world stage overseas, and still no action. In my view, this is not how the United States Congress should operate, or in my view, has operated in the past. The political games have to stop. Twice now, the House has balked at the opportunity to send the BIF legislation to the president. As you've heard, there are some House Democrats who say they can't support this infrastructure package until they get my commitment on the reconciliation legislation.
So, Congresswoman Cori Bush, a member of the squad, came out and with a press release after that and just absolutely blasted Senator Manchin. Says he opposes the bill. His opposition to the reconciliation bill is anti-Black, anti-child, anti-woman, and anti-immigrant. So once again, they're throwing accusations out. I mean, maybe he's just a Democrat from a really red state, and maybe he's concerned about the economic impacts of this, like how we would actually pay for it, or maybe the inflation that this bill might actually cause if it was actually passed. But nope, got to be anti everything from the Democrats.
Yeah, the only one they missed in there was is polar bears, anti-black, child, woman, and immigrant. But I'm glad she brought it up because Joe Manchin was...
It's funny you should mention it because she does mention indigenous people in the president. Yeah, it is literally, I think, everybody. She hit every group.
And you know, when after 2020, it became very apparent really quickly that Joe Manchin was probably going to be the most important politician in the country. And to this point, I applaud him. He stood up because I bet you he recognized when she calls him anti-child. No, he's not. He's pro-child, because if you pass this kind of $1 trillion spending package, which is just paying out political favors and buying votes, then you're destroying the next generation. You think inflation's bad? You keep printing $3 trillion. People have no clue what $3 trillion really is. And somebody's got to pay it back eventually, or it just collapses upon itself. So I'm proud of him for at least standing up to it. Who knows what happens next? Maybe the Senate was just confused, or the House was confused on where to send the bill to the president to sign, because they're not sure if he's in that fake White House or if he's in the real the one across the street. Yeah.
So ultimately,
the playground.
I don't know if Democrats actually go ahead and pass this bill now because of these election results in New Jersey and in Virginia. I'm not really sure where that is.
I think that most Americans believe they just want the government to finally get out of their way, get out of their pocketbooks. Don't promise me that you're going to pay me, because it's fool's gold. All I want you to do is get out of the way so we can go back to work and live a fulfillful, productive life, because that's what they've been robbed of. You're being robbed every day. If you see inflation going through the roof, you can't figure out how you're going to buy your kids presents. And all they want to do to answer the question is, we want to spend $3.5 trillion on God knows what. I think a lot of it is actually foreign money too. So people see this stuff as what it is. It is a joke, and it is a vote buying scheme.
Well, wokeism certainly took a beating at the ballot box yesterday. But on our Go Woke or Go Broke segment, Kyle Busch, you got some NASCAR fans out there. Kyle Busch had a little bit of an accident in a post-race interview. Mr. Producer?
Well, he drills my ass coming out of 4 for no reason. I mean, where was he going? What was he going to do? Spin me out? He was trying to do a Harvick is what he was trying to do. For what? For second place? To do what? He wasn't going to transfer through with that? Just freaking man. So stupid. I don't understand these guys. I should be out of them right now is what I should do, but that doesn't do me any good either.
Why not? I mean, Crafton yesterday said that's what some of these guys need. With the lack of respect.
I've already had to pay enough fines in my lifetime. I'm sure I'll get another one.
So you saw some beeps there by, I believe that was a cut from NBC. Kyle Busch there out of the car, you know, he's pretty upset, and he drops the R word. That's the word he used. The R word, for those who don't know, is retarded. You know, Kyle, I'll give him a little bit of a pass. Kyle Busch and I are the same age. We kind of grew up around using that word in lieu of the word stupid. And it's a word I tried to drop from my lexicon here recently, but, you know, he let it slip out. I mean, he had some emotion in, getting out of the car, and he lets it rip. The interesting thing is NASCAR came out later. There may be a fine associated with that, but in a statement released Monday by NASCAR, wrote that Kyle Busch will be required to take sensitivity training before beginning the 2022 season. What do you think about that, Brian?
That'd be great. As you know, my wife's aunt lived with us for 6 years. She got Down syndrome. So I had 2. I mean, I understand, but we did grow up in a generation, and Kyle Busch, the same thing. He's not trying to offend anybody. He's not trying to offend that community. He's all amped up. His car, he just got out of a car going 200 miles an hour, where a guy tried to basically take his rear end or his ass and push him into the wall and knock him out. So of course he's upset. You would be upset too. We see road rage all the time, but these people are going 200 miles an hour. He's just speaking from emotion. But the idea of that we're going to send everybody into some sort of training to make them more woke or better people is absurd. It is, and this is what people are starting to reject.
Well, and I think it is absurd because he comes out, he obviously said it, he apologized for it on Sunday. I shouldn't have said it. My temper was getting to me. And then to come out and say, well, we're going to have to take a sensitivity class. And it's really to the detriment of NASCAR. I remember watching NASCAR back in the day where, one of the big races with NASCAR was Bobby Allison and Cale Yarborough beating the crap out of each other going down the straightaway, and cars flipping over and stuff at Daytona. So, some of these personalities like Dale Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, what would they have said if you had to take them to sensitivity training?
I would actually pay money to see Dale Sr. go to sensitivity training. That would have been pure genius right there.
Can you imagine the Intimidator at sensitivity training?
Could you imagine who's teaching that class? Everybody be going 3 out of there for sure.
Is that
rubbing
a
his
pass
racing
fail grade on that?
Like you and I said, rubbing is racing, but I think that Dale would have been doing more than rubbing. If you tried to send him to sensitivity training, he would have made somebody feel sensitive, that's for sure. You would have felt something.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a good segue into we have the dumbest bill in America. We have some music for that, Mr. Producer. Dum 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 dum. So, Minneapolis voters had a decision on their ballot whether they were going to defund and dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. I believe we have a clip on that.
Laura, the results are in, and voters have rejected this proposal to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. This is a major blow to progressive Democrats and to the defund the police movement overall. Remember, Minneapolis became ground zero for the defund movement after the death of George Floyd, and activists believed if they could win here, it would set the stage for them to dismantle other police departments in cities across the country. Standing in their way, though, has been a group of leaders from the black community who have been the most outspoken critics of this plan to dismantle Minneapolis Police Department at a time when the city is seeing a surge in violent crime and is on pace to break records for homicides. Black communities have been the hardest hit by this wave of crime, and those leaders argue that while reforms to police are needed, their neighborhoods need more officers, not fewer.
So I'm just shocked that the results of having less police makes the streets more dangerous. I mean, is that...
That doesn't add up, Matt. So you're telling me that less law enforcement leads to more lawlessness? That's not right. That's impossible.
Well, I mean, that's what we've been told for years now, or at least last year, since the riots of last year, that it was really the police to be blamed in this. And it's interesting that the out of control crime, that the greatest victims of these crimes seem to be African Americans in these communities are actually victims. And this is what happens when we pay more attention to the police, and the policies are actually causing more problems than they're fixing.
Yeah, and you can see it. It's not just Minneapolis. It's across the American landscape. Now you look at every Democrat city that has decided we're going to defund the police or make them the enemy. And what has happened? Crime has gone through the roof. And who has that really hurt? It hurt some of the police departments. Obviously, people have either left the job. But who it really hurts are the ones affected mostly by this crime. And many times, just like Minneapolis pointed out, it is the low income. It's the poverty-stricken areas that are now being crime-ridden to the point that they have become almost prisoners within their own neighborhood. They have to lock their doors and stay inside. They go outside, they can get robbed. Stores are being robbed. People are being carjacked. Baltimore City is a perfect case of this too. That if you're less than 18 years old and you carjack somebody at 17, you're back out in a year. And that's why we see 500 plus carjackings. And if you take more and more police off the street, you're going to get more and more of this. So the American people have to ask themselves, and the people living in these cities, are you comfortable with the crime wave? Are you comfortable with crime going up? Are you comfortable with feeling like you're in danger no matter what you do? Or do we want to reverse this and say this was a bad idea?
So this was a definitive answer by the voters saying, you know what? We don't want to defund our police. We believe, if crime's a problem, the police are there as part of the solution to solve the high crime rates. I'm just wondering how this will play in with any type of vaccine mandate on police, on fire, rescue, going forward, because they're looking at laying off a whole bunch of people in the city of Chicago and really cities around the country now. Or you're forcing these guys into a vaccine that some of them don't want to take. And you might result in less police
and once again, I believe it's intentional. I don't believe this is anything to do with science anymore, because the vaccine, and I don't care if you take it or if you don't take it, we're seeing the results, and the vaccine is no miracle drug, and people have the right to say no, but I think it's intentional. I think it's an intentional motive by government, whether it's from all the way at the top of the White House or just some of the local control, where they like to force these people out. They like to push people on unemployment, because guess who's in power then? The more you rely on the government, and that's what they're going to do. They want people on unemployment. They don't like the police. So we say, hey, we're going to put this vaccine mandate in. Guess what we do? We accelerate unemployment. We push the cops off the street. We destroy the economy, and more people have to rely on us. So I think that's what, when you break it down to brass tacks, that's what the vaccine mandate is really about. It's got nothing to do with science. It's just all about submission.
Well, I'm really concerned about how the people are, if they're going to be safer now, if you cut a lot of these public services like police, fire, and we'll see how that plays out. Any last comments or well wishes for Mark?
Mark, please enjoy your time down there. We miss you, buddy. Can't wait to have you back.
I can't wait to have you back too, Mark. So that's the end of the podcast for Mark and the Millennials. We want to thank you for joining me today. I'm Matt Morgan. We want to thank our producer, Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, Rumble, and of course our website. See you next time.